Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and today I'm joined by Jonathan, Alex, and Eric. How are you folks doing today?
Doing
Great.
fantastic.
And today I got the folks with me from RPG Travel, and if you're going to kind of go around, introduce yourselves, and tell us a little about each of you, and then we can jump into what is RPG Travel.
All right, let's say go. Alex, why don't you go ahead and kick it off since you're our travel guy? You can start. We'll go around the horn.
Absolutely. My name's Alex Thor, based here in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm a geographer by trade and cartographer. I've been in the travel business for nearly 15 years, operating tours all around the world with another company that I have. And I'm lucky enough to have lived in South America for a little while as well. And basically, Jonathan's a good friend of ours that our kids went to school together, and we kind of got connected one day, and that's how kind of RPG Travel was born. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's a little bit of history of my background.
So I'm Jonathan Adams. I am one of the partners in RPG Travel, and I also based in Lexington, Kentucky. Alex and I were having beers over a football game one day, and I have been a gamer since I was a small child, and I've been fortunate enough to be an amateur traveler almost as long. And we kind of started talking about some of the things that people can do while they travel, and it connected up to gaming. And I said, hey, this is something that people are starting to talk about. I guess this was what, in 2018 ish. Can you put together a tour where we go play in a castle somewhere? And his response was, well, heck yeah, I can. And so that's kind of the germ of the idea. I have been a D&D player and then additional RPGs for quite some time. And then I started DMing in the mid 80s and have not looked back. So again, that's kind of a little bit about me and kind of how we got the idea started. And we'll kick it over to one of the newer members of our team, Eric.
Hello. I am indeed that newer member. I am the Eric. I was recently joined them when they pitched an idea that they had a trip to go to Ireland where we would get to put a campaign, a D&D mini campaign together based around the ideas of all the places we visited. And this was just catnip to me. I could not resist. I've had a lot of background and history of writing Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. I am a freelancer for Wizards of the Coast. My biggest credit is to Menzoberranzan, City of Intrigue, which I co-wrote with Brian James, which is all about the legendary city of the Drow. Most recently, I have been the story architect for Baldman Games, doing their Rising Shadows storyline set in the Moonshae Isles of the Forgotten Realms, which was a 3-year-long organized play campaign, 20 trilogies, 60 adventures, thousands of players. So we had a lot of experience of bringing many people to the table. We ran at Origins, Gen Con, Winter Fantasy, and countless local conventions as well. And Moonshaes has a great deal of Irish lore in it already. So it was a quick little step from there over to this one.
So, your timing could not have been better for starting a travel company based around getting together with people. I can commiserate a little bit because at the end of 2019, we're like, we should start an event company. But that being said, I guess you guys have had a lot of time for planning.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, what was a little frustrating, like the rest of the world, COVID came along and kind of blew up everybody's plans. So we had, a handful of these really cool itineraries set, and we had to basically turn them all off while everybody locked down. So it was in April, May of this year that we kind of saw a little light at the end of the tunnel, and we started kind of slowly turning things back on and letting people know that these trips were going to be coming. And, that's it. You're right. It coincided pretty well with as we see the people starting to return to traveling and wanting to be back with their friends in person to do things. It just sort of dovetails well with this idea of we're trying to sort of peg ourselves to, and it's experience gaming is sort of a tagline that we're using in a hashtag, but getting people to play the games that they love in really cool, iconic venues.
So you've already mentioned Ireland, and before we even got started, and I met you find folks in Gen Con, and we started talking a little bit. You're also doing things that are also here local to the U.S. And I believe aside from Ireland, you also plan to do other locations as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We plan to do some one shots in specific cities across the country. So looking to do some things up in the Minneapolis area, Ruby Falls, which is kind of around the Chattanooga area, Cincinnati, another venue outside of Philly. So we probably have about 15 locations that we've scouted out that we feel comfortable with doing one shots at, but we'll probably roll out about 5 to 7 of those in the coming weeks.
And what kind of locations are you guys looking for? Is that like 7 or 8 castles here in the U.S.?
It's a combination. It could be a castle that someone built. It could be a cave. It could be an abandoned gold mine. It can be a variety of places. Just something interesting, a little bit different that fits the theme of the game.
One of the cool things that people who play RPGs, they certainly know that there are settings galore that can be adapted. We found that there's just about any setting or concept that you can think of, we can find a location either in the States or internationally that kind of fit. So as we sort of come up with these things, I can't tell you how many people when we were at Gen Con and Origins that would come up to us and say, oh, you should check out so-and-so in, close to my hometown. And we love those kinds of recommendations. I take those and I throw them to Alex, and he goes and starts uncovering how we can actually go there and play. So a lot of our venues actually kind of began as those tips of, let's go check out something here. One of the first on-location events we did was actually about an hour east of Lexington, Kentucky, where we're based. It's in Carter Caves, and that was sort of, like I said, we did just sort of a test run to see, is this really as cool as we think it is? And the answer was a resounding yes, it was cool. It was cooler than actually we expected. It makes it kind of hard to play at a table again.
So right now you've started kind of with the one shots. When do you have dates set for when you're going to actually kick off these events?
So we do. Our website is a little sparse right now as we kind of get some of these dates finalized, but most of the one shots are going to start sort of around the first weekend of January. We may have a date that will kick off in December of this year, but with COVID, it's just kind of made things a little harder to nail down a couple people. But so as of right now, our one shots kind of start in the January timeframe, and we'll run those January, February, March-ish. Our international trips pick up and run. We have Ireland set for, I believe it's May 5th is that first full week of May. And then immediately after Ireland, we'll be doing a trip in Romania. Those are booked and dates. And then we'll have 1 or 2 more internationals in this sort of spring, early spring, late spring timeframe that we'll announce dates here pretty soon.
Nice. So, what locations are you guys most excited about?
Since the one that's coming up, we have started. I'm also a writer. I've been doing these, personal campaigns for years, and so the idea of creating these custom adventures was something that we really wanted to do, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about doing. Are writing these sort of maxi one shots, mini campaigns. Eric joined our team specifically for Ireland coming up, and we have just sort of started that process. And I'm so excited about where this one's going to go and the adventure that we have planned for people. I'll kind of kick it over to Eric and let him talk a little bit about it, but we're going to have a blast.
So, Eric, what can we expect in Ireland?
Old school ferries. Witchlight just came out, and it's a fantastic adventure, but it takes kind of the modern fantasy look at fairies. I was going to go back to Yates's versions with the Irish folktale. I was going to start drawing from that as much as I could to work this through. I'm really excited about seeing the Book of Kells in person, which is going to be, I believe that's where we see on our first stop at the Trinity College in Dublin. And from there, we got a bunch of others. So that's one. I want to go see a lot of the old sites that are built into folklore that have been around for thousands of years. And I want to see if I can weave a campaign that builds upon those sites and what the people are seeing. And that then echoes back into the adventure where they're going. So I believe we'll be seeing a lot of the old school fair folk. Maybe the Fierborg will make an appearance.
So, Alex, you're the travel expert. So, are you the one that kind of sets the itinerary?
Absolutely. So basically,
Take me through Ireland. Like, I signed up for this Ireland castle gig. What does this look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing about RPG travel when we started it is that a lot of individuals have a friend, a family member, or a spouse that might want to travel with them. It's hard to say. If I was to tell my wife, I'm going to go to Ireland and game for 8 days and not take you, it's probably not going to go over so well. So what we did is we decided to put something together where everybody could game 4 to 5 hours a day. But while they're gaming, let's say in a dungeon in a 14th century castle in Ireland, the spouse will go with our tour guide and do other fun stuff. So it's open to gamers, but also non-gamers. So in Ireland, we're going to visit Cliffs of Moher, Kilkenny Castle, Blarney Castle, Dublin, Ring of Kerry, all those postcard, Ireland photos that you see. You're going to see those. You're going to see all the major sites. You're going to have amazing food. You're gonna game in amazing locations with a custom adventure that Jonothan and Eric will put together. So we try to replicate that all over the world. So for me, back to your other question, I love the international aspect of this just because we are such a young country, but we can go to Europe, we can go to Central America, play within Mayan ruins. We can go to Egypt and cruise down the Nile River and then play in front of the Giza pyramids. I mean, there's so many options available. I remember right before COVID hit, one of the reasons, Jonothan reached out is because I'm usually in Europe 3 months out of an entire calendar year with other groups, with my other company. So while I was there, I was scoping out other venues. I've been to a lot of these castles and stuff, but other venues that would be unique for RPG travel. And then I remember going to, we have Romania coming up in the spring, but I remember going to Romania and I don't know, I was there maybe 6 days, but looking at 35 different hotels, restaurants, bus companies, talking to my guides, all the logistics that go into operating a trip. And I remember going to Bran Castle and meeting with the general manager and telling him about the idea. And he was like, this is awesome. I'm all about it. We actually just had a group from Singapore here who do like an EA game inside Bran Castle. And they had hooked up some Wi-Fi and made it work. And it was this huge success. But they took me through the castle and showed me all these cool rooms that we could game in that are not open to the public. And they took me all the way up in the bell tower. And it was super scary for sure. My legs were like noodles up there. And he's like, what about this? And I'm like, first of all, I can't believe I'm in the bell tower of Dracula's castle here in Bran's Castle. But I was also like, I need to snap a few photos and get down because this is really scary up here. But that's the best part of the travel experience. So for me, it's all about finding cool locations. Luckily I've been traveling for a long time. I've been to 50 plus countries. I know the areas, the hotels, and we have guides all over the place. But for me, it's putting the trip together. So it's accommodations, transport, airlines, food, all of the things that go into making a tour work is what I handle. So all of those operations, travel, logistics, and finding those venues. And then Jonathan comes in with and works with our other GMs and such like Eric to create an amazing adventure that they can play in these locations. So that's kind of how it works.
I'm going to throw you guys a freebie. Hear me out. Right? Budapest, during the day, you either play modern or post-apocalyptic games. And then, when you're not playing the games, you drive tanks and blow shit up.
I love it.
Make it happen, Alex.
It's like really cheap. It's like $300 or $500 to rent a tank.
That's amazing. I love it.
We can figure something out. We can shoot all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and blow stuff up. But I mean, I'm working on a trip right now in Czech Republic. It's about done. A great trip. Got one in Central America. We have Norway, the UK, Italy. I mean,
is there like an ice castle someplace, right? Or is it a hotel or something?
That's up in Sweden, northern Sweden. Well, each of those they all kind of have their own ice castles, but
standard issue.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, we have some great venues. There's so many cool venues, especially in Europe. But I mean, Europe, Central America, and then eventually Asia as well. Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Those are locations that are definitely on the list, as well as Africa as well. Doing like a safari theme. I know you see probably some of my little trinkets behind here, but these are from Botswana and Zambia. Doing safaris there. Gaming in a palapa with at night when you have a little pond nearby and there's giraffes and elephants and lions coming up to take a drink of water from it while you're gaming and you're 100 feet from them. I mean, that's about the experience. That's what we're trying to replicate.
I have a team of GMs that are actually looking right now to update the Dark Sun rules so we can run a Dark Sun themed campaign through Northern Africa, which is a little different from what Alex was saying. But those are the kinds of things that we have slated to do. Being able to take these iconic places and do some really awesome adventures where people get to see, like one of the challenges I think in some of the come here and game concepts is you go to these really cool places, but then you kind of miss the places, the things that you want to see. If you go to France, you want to be able to see the stuff in France. If you go to Ireland, you don't want to spend 8 days in a single room and not actually see the cool things that you want to see when you go. And so, again, that's really where the mix came in, so we can bring the cultural aspect of where we are and then tie it back into the game that we're going to play. So
how do you guys balance that part out? So first of all, it's 8 days, which is a decent length of time, decent trip. So how does that break down like day by day? Like how much of that is gaming? How much of that is kind of just being a tourist?
Usually about 5 to 6 hours of gaming per day. Most days. There's some days that are free days. So basically, let's say wake up in the morning and you'll do a gaming session in, let's say, a specific castle or something like that. Our tour guide would take the non-gamers to do something else. Then you all meet back at a pub for lunch. And then you go, after that, you're going to, let's say, Blarney Castle or something like that. And then you're going to shop at the woolen mills and all that good stuff. So usually about 4 to 5 hours a day. I'd say probably, Jonathan, 25 to 35 hours of gaming for a week-long trip is pretty
over the course of that maxi campaign. We kind of shoot for 25 to 30 some hours of actual gameplay. So it's you really do get a good mix. You get to see the cool stuff and you get to play the cool games, and that you're not maxing out on one or the other.
Yeah, and 8 days typically works pretty well with most individuals because you're leaving on a Saturday. All the flights are overnight to Europe, so you're there on Sunday morning, and you basically kind of start that night, but also hit the ground running Monday. And you're missing 5 days of work, which is suitable for most people, and you're maximizing your vacation time within that 9-day window.
So at this point, I've played D&D in like 2 castles and I guess a Lord's Manor. And, which was very cool and exciting. But one of the things like people had asked is like, how was this country? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I only know that I was in this one spot for the whole time, which was really cool. But, you don't really get the experience of what everything else. And it was also a much shorter condensed trip as well.
we,
Absolutely. That's the
go
biggest
ahead.
thing for us, is to make sure that you're going to see the sites, you'll be culturally immersed, and you're actually talk to people and hang out with people, have time to go chat in an Irish pub. The Irish people are super friendly. So, I mean, they're going to hear your accent and immediately come up to you and start talking to you. So, those type of things are wonderful to be able to immerse yourself into all of that. And we have our tour guides that operate these are professional tour guides that have actually been trained and have been doing this for years and years. So they're adding so much information while you're driving from point A to point B, let's say on the intercom of the bus, to point out things, because you'll quickly realize in Ireland, once you're driving down the street, there's a castle every 100 yards, it seems like, or there's something connected to it. So it's good to have someone local to point things out that you normally wouldn't even see or do, or notice. So that's where I think RPG travel is just a little bit different, because we definitely want to have the gaming experience, but I definitely want everybody to walk away and say, wow, I saw all the sites. So when they talk to a friend that went on an Ireland tour the year before, oh, did you go to Cliffs of Moher? Yes. Did you go to Ring of Kerry? Yes, I did. Did you do Christchurch Cathedral? Absolutely. It was amazing. So all of those places will be seen, as well as other places that we don't take, that like the main kind of tourist trail doesn't hit, just to get off the beaten path a little bit and see some other things out there.
And also,
So
folks, if you're just joining us or new to the live chats, as always, in the description you can find links to check out RPG Travel and see the different places that they've already got on the schedule to go check out. And that's really important, the fact that you bring up like the component for those that are just nerd adjacent, for the partners and spouses that are nerd adjacent aren't really interested in the gaming. Part of me doesn't wonder too, though, if you're not going to have problems with folks wanting, like, being torn between, do I game in this castle or do I go see the cool things that my spouse is going to see or my partner's going to see now.
I definitely think there'll be some of that. We definitely are trying to make sure that we provide that cultural bit for the gamers as well. So the opportunities are there to see and do and experience. They're just going to be those little bit of bonus things that sort of sweeten the deal for that friend or family member or whatever that you probably can't quite get the idea of them joining the game for 8 full days in a row.
So, Eric, what is your role in all of this as one of the GMs? Are you just one of the GMs for this specific event, other events? Does that someone like coordinate like all the adventures and kind of in charge of that, or is that like per event it's different?
A per event is different, is my understanding. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Yeah,
so I am the lead DM just for the Ireland trip. And he's also asked me to be the lead designer for the mini campaign for this Ireland trip. My understanding is that different designers will do different games for other locales.
Yeah, so Eric will be doing the Ireland. We hope that he will choose to do some more after that as well. We have quite a few on the books that we will be beginning to develop. But what we have done over the last year and a half or so is start to put together a really impressive team of experienced DMs, GMs, writers, content creators. And so each of our venues, we sort of pick that lead DM person who will coordinate the adventure. They do most of the writing. And then we have the other sort of content creators that I work with to flesh those adventures out. And then from there, depending on how many people we're going to have in the adventure, we then select from our team of, I think we've got maybe 30 or so GMs in our team right now. We're always adding more of different places around the country, which is sort of our goal. But based on the number of players in a particular event, we'll bring the rest of our DMs in, and we start play testing and working through the modules and go from there. So we have a specific lead designer for each of our experiences as we kind of bounce around to the different venues.
So currently, how many DMs are there per event?
That purely depends on how many players we're going to have. We talked a little bit about Gen Con before. When we did the Gen Con event last con, we had 150 players over the course of a couple of nights. We did an event down under the city of Indianapolis in a place called the Indy Catacombs. And it's like 20,000 square feet of this barrel vaulted brick dungeon. I mean, it was just amazing. And it's completely hidden underneath the streets of Indianapolis. And so we hosted all these players in there for a couple of nights. So we ended up having about 20 GMs spread around that space to run that same adventure for tables. Typically 4, 5, 6 on some players per table. We kind of max out at that number, but it just purely becomes a mathematical trick at that point. We have 30 players. We have a certain set of number of GMs that go, and if we have 100 players, that number goes up.
I imagine the venue will dictate as well, right? Like like a huge cavern, you might be able to get more people into, but like some of these events are gonna have limited space.
Absolutely. And most of the international trips, we're going to be capping out anyways at 5, 6, maybe 7 tables max. So you're going to have, 30 people or so on the trip, but we have to keep it somewhat small, because if you and most times we'll have a bus that's 50 seats, 54 seats, something like that, and we're going to have 30 travelers on the trip. Let's say we want people to be able to have plenty of room spread out. We're not trying to pack people on buses like some of these larger tour companies do, where they have to fill every single seat and they push people and you're all crowded in there. So it's very boutique, and that's the way we want to keep it, because it really takes away from the experience if you're on a bus with that many people. So we have to cap it. Number one, because some of the venues, we're not going to be able to fit that many tables, but I've been doing this a long time. We've never filled any buses. We always do about 30 people is just about right. Between 20 and 30 individuals on a big bus. That's just adds to the experience, and people really appreciate that, and they feel like they got their money's worth out of it as well.
And to your point, Dave, we just had one of our GMs in a cave in Tennessee that we're going to be setting up, and he actually had his tape measure out, running it out to make sure that we had the right amount of space in each of these little cave alcoves for our tables. And that, of course, then that dictates the size of the maps that we could use and the size of the terrain and all of that kind of, laying the game experience out. So when we pick certain venues, that definitely will limit the number of players that could experience that particular one at that particular moment.
Yeah, and absolutely. Back to the tables. I mean, some countries will not have the tables that we need, so we actually have to buy them, keep them on the bus, and move them from event to event, and have other staff there to do that. Let's say while you're doing the private tour of the castle, we have other team members that are setting up those tables and moving those tables. And that's just the way it is in some countries. They're like, it's a 72-inch round here and a 60-inch round table there, and an 8x30 rectangular table over there. And it's like, no. We have to have the same table in these venues. So there's a lot of logistics that get wrapped up in that. So there's a lot of conversations you have, then you have language barriers. So, I mean, on a given day, I'm talking to 10 different people from 10 different countries through WhatsApp and various means about tables and linens and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So, I mean, it really is one whole package you have to put together to make sure it's extremely smooth once everybody arrives.
So essentially you have to have gaming roadies.
100%. Applications on our web. No, I'm kidding.
That is awesome. Eric, what are you most looking forward to running when you get to Ireland?
I would really like to work in elements of what we tour during the day into the campaign. For example, one of the places we're going to go see is the Ring of Kerry, which I love. Environmental travel. I really want to see all the sights of the Ring of Kerry, which is this very cool trail along, I believe, the west coast of Ireland. Is that right, Alex?
Absolutely.
And it's overlooking the Atlantic Sea on that point. And it's so very picturesque. You can almost see various brooding NPCs standing on the cliffs looking out at the sea. And if there was some way I could work that into a scavenger hunt, like if I give them a bunch of questions that the players have to answer in game and the answers they find on the Ring of Kerry. And I want to see if I can start working information from what we see into the game and into the game to what we're seeing. So it builds anticipation. The two feed off of each other. I've never done anything like this before, and it excites and intrigues me.
I do kind of have a related story, because we were getting ready to run an event, and like it was the Nerdarchy crew that basically had a castle, Caver's Wall, in the UK, and like we had designed everything around that castle and some of the lore of the castle and the town that's outside the castle, and like the day we were getting the day before we're supposed to get on our flights, our point person calls us to go, hey, there's been a slight issue. You're going to a castle, but it's not the same one, because their castle had been seized by the bank, and they had like in 2 weeks they like moved castles and had to like figure everything out. So like we had all this weird stuff going on, about peacocks, and we turned Lemmy from Motorhead into one of our main NPCs, because he's originally from the town that's like right there by Caver's Wall. And we're like, well, what's written is written now. I guess we're going with it. And we were able to change some things on the fly or whatever, but it was definitely an interesting experience. And I can say I could probably have fun with doing the things you want to do. And it is so cool to like be able to incorporate elements from those things that you see into the game, as well as I've played in games where the GM is like, oh, let's go into the chapel and we'll do this scene here. So that stuff is a lot of fun, and it's an experience that like you're not likely to ever get anywhere else or ever again. So super cool.
I'm trying to think, which was the one that is it a Kennedy Castle? That's kind of like oh no, it was the Cluna Cowing. Oh God, I gotta learn how to pronounce these names. I'm way too Welsh. If you give me W's, I can totally pronounce W's and Y's and G's. But what was it, Alex?
I was just going to add, things like that happen all the time on a trip. Things change, like, this happened or that happened. But that's why we have full-time guides and a team working behind the scenes constantly, because there's always something going on that the travelers are never going to know about.
Yeah.
Let's say it's the restaurant or something. The chef didn't show up. What do we got to do? We can't get the food out in time. So you're scrambling to find this. And this is casually going on behind the scenes, while the tour guide's also talking on the mic, potentially, while they're sending a text about what we're passing by and all that good stuff. So There's never a dull moment in the travel business. There's always something. I mean, the individual I work with out in Czech Republic, we were talking about, we're finalizing one of the events that we're going to play in the Bohemian Forest. And we have these spots, but then it's like, okay, if it's raining, it's windy. So now we have to have we have plan B, plan C, and every single tour, we have to have multiple options afterwards, or, you just run into a hiccup. So, I mean, all of those things have been thought of, planned out prior, just in case something, gets thrown our way. So that's one of the big things in regards to having a full service kind of tour package for everybody. They don't really have to think, they just enjoy themselves.
The idea is for them not to know all the stuff that you had to like juggle behind the scenes to make it work.
Yeah.
Same thing happens to DMs. As long as players don't know about it, that you're completely off script.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. They don't know.
So Alex, have they gotten a D20 into your hands yet?
Yes, actually, I've had one of those in my hands, but I use them at our local craft brewery down here. They have 20 beers on tap, and I take that thing every time I go in there and I just roll it, and then that's the beer I'm going to get.
That's funny.
Not so much gaming, more so drinking craft beer, but it is coming as well. But I've just been so heavy trying to build these custom itineraries. It's been crazy. So we're getting ready for hopefully a huge rebound coming out of the COVID pandemic and all of that. So Jonathan and Alex, how did you guys initially connect? Because Alex, you're clearly a muggle. Sorry.
Oh, he absolutely is. He's a heck of a guy, but I just haven't got him over the gaming hump yet. He and I have kids the same age, and they both went to the same school. They both go to the same pool in the summer, and we've sort of been connected through those channels for I don't know what, maybe 8 or 9 years now. And like I said, in 2018, we were just kind of sitting around having a beer, watching a little football, and the idea sort of generated from that, and then I thought we kind of turned it off because of COVID, and then Alex called me up and said, "Oh, by the way, all these great things that we were getting ready to do, we're going to do them again." I'm like, huh? "Okay, here we go. Let's kick it off," and that was again sort of the beginning of where we are now.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. I think it was halftime, and you said, "Look, let me tell you about this idea I have playing, about D&D." And I'm like, "Yeah. I think I played once when I was a kid." And he's like, "Can we play in castles and do this, different stuff in Europe?" And I'm just thought for about maybe a half a second. I'm like, "Well, absolutely, we can do that." And that is an amazing idea. And then I said, "Tell me more." And then, what kind of spacing do you need? How long do you have to game? All the, the instinct of a travel operator kind of gets in gear. And he's telling me these things, and I was just blown away. I was like, "Yeah, I think this will totally work. I'm actually going to be in Europe in 2 weeks, and I'm going to start scoping other spots out that I think will work." And I was doing that a lot before the pandemic and all that stuff. So yeah, it was just, and then we just kind of put it on pause, and this past May, we kind of like turned the website on and started getting things rolling, and doing the Gen Con event was really good, and we had a great time, and people loved it. 15 tables with that many people in the catacombs was an amazing event for us.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing thing, like over the last couple years. For a while we've had what is it, the Joko cruise, which has been kind of like a nerd geek cruise. Back in 2017 maybe, we did something called Fantasy Cruise, which was more like a Comic-Con at sea, but they had a game room, and we ran some games in there. D&D in the castle the last couple years. So, and then like I think Satine's doing all kinds of what she's calling her side quests right now.
Yeah.
So like there definitely seems to be an appetite for it, and the niche is just growing, and we're getting like all these cool high end things, and also like Beatles and Grimm are showing like they're selling an adventure box is like that's the price of a mortgage pretty much. So like it's good because it shows that there's an appetite for these luxury kind of Cadillac services and products for gamers, which I'm super excited for. Cups wants to know, any chance a West Coast trip might happen?
Absolutely, 100% yes. Alex,
we're working on some venues up around the Seattle area. Haven't quite finalized also around the Bay Area, and then down into Southern California as well. We just haven't finalized those details. A big thing is just the COVID situation still is kind of lingering. So a lot of the venues we would like to have will not accept any request at this moment. So it's kind of just wait and see. We're kind of on pause to see when those will start opening back up. It's kind of like all those folks and friends that I have in the wedding industry. They are so busy right now because there was no weddings for 10 months.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar to that. So trying to find specific venues. So there's definitely some places that we're thinking about having, and they will be in the pipeline. So you can sign up, subscribe on our website. And as we kick things out, you'll get an email saying, "Hey, this event's going." One of the cool things about doing on the travel side is when I actually have to have a conversation with someone, let's say in Germany or wherever, and I have to tell them exactly what we're doing. And I start by a lot of times by, are you familiar with Dungeons and Dragons? And shockingly, over 50% of the people, it could be someone that's 70 years old or 22, they say, yeah, I play that, or I used to play that.
Yeah.
And then I say, and then it's easier for me to explain what I'm trying to do. Now, the other 50% are like, now, what do you want to do? You want to play games,
Yeah.
like board tabletop games inside here? Like, do you need all these electronics? I'm like, no. We want to do this. And you're like, are you sure? What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
But after I get it by them, then they're like, oh, okay, I understand. Very cool. So
Yeah, you're gonna have to like send them to something like, here's an episode of Big Bang Theory where they play D&D. It's like this or whatever. Yeah. So like on the website, you guys are showing New Zealand, Norway, Scotland, Belize, Romania, and Ireland so far, which is a nice spread. I know from talking to you guys, and you've already mentioned about playing in caves and ruins and castles. And what kind of locations are you looking at? Were you talking about for like in Africa? Remember, some of us are layfolk and may not know the actual terms that you're using.
So, in Africa, it's more so of a safari style trip. So think about going, if you ever dreamed about going on a safari in Kenya, Botswana, wherever, you normally stay in camps, basically a luxury tent. But they're very popular and people go on them. You'll actually do a safari, but you're going to have gaming sessions. So on a safari, you normally in the morning for about 2-3 hours, you will go on safari because that's the best time to see wildlife, in the morning and just before dark. So you'll do those safari sessions. And then during the day, let's say you'll be gaming or something like that, but the non-gamers will be doing something like a culinary cooking class of native, like ingredients that we're going to pull from the jungle and actually cook something. And that'll be our lunch or something like that. So each location, be it Africa or I'm working on something in, Taiwan, Japan, Southeast Asia as well. All of those have some type of dynamic connected to the history and the culture of that area.
Eric, if you have your pick of next place to GM, where would you pick?
Oh, my favorite, Wales. Or possibly the Palatinate of in Germany. I'm trying to remember the name of the river that flows east into the Rhine near Dusseldorf. Do you know, Alex?
Put me on the spot. And
but Wales, I've been there when I was doing some research for Moonshays, also because I always wanted to go. Wales is beautiful. It is incredible. I loved every moment of it.
Did your accountant accept that as an acceptable write-off?
I didn't try, but because they couldn't guarantee I'd make money off of the Moonshay stuff for organized play. But for this, I probably would. But one of the things I love best about it is like London is absurdly expensive. But once you get out of London and into Wales, Wales is on sale. We stayed at a carriage house where, who's the woman that wrote Pride and Prejudice again? Jane Austen. She stayed at a carriage house that was down the street from the castle built by Edward Longshanks in the 12th century. And it was 120 euros a night because Wales is cheap. And it was just beautiful. And you could hear the cows outside and the sheep outside of the city because the dairy is just incredible there. Best ice cream I've ever had. And it was just an incredible experience. Love Conwy. It was fantastic.
Nice.
Oh, sorry.
What you got, Alex? You know that river for me? Can you help me out?
No, I was just going to mention that a lot of individuals are asking us what countries are open, who's going to be open first. And it's basically going to be Europe, the European Union countries, as well as probably Central America, including the Caribbean, a little bit of South America. I was just on a call the other day with about 30 other individuals from all around the world. It was a Zoom from Asia to Australia, all over. We were talking about what's going on locally in their country. And, the Australia, New Zealand, they're probably not even going to open it up until late 2022.
Maybe they've been locked down pretty hard.
They have. Yeah. They're actually, the New Zealanders, they even joke. They're like, we're like a hermit crab we're just going to be locked down here forever. So they're really ready to get out and travel, but they're even joking with themselves like, yeah, I've been doing a lot of fishing and I've been doing a lot of this and a lot of that, but we still can't do anything. So
You had mentioned
everybody's
something about a
doing
riverboat. So is that like an idea you guys are kicking around? Have you looked into doing that, like a river cruise where you're like on a cruise the whole time?
there's some really nice cruises that you could do on a river in Europe. So we've looked at those, and that could be a potential trip as well. Right now,
Yeah.
we've been focused kind of on the land portion trips where you go to one country and you see as much as possible in all the sites. But absolutely, that's the one that we do have up and running. We're just about to finalize dates is the one on the Nile River, where you actually cruise down the Nile while you're gaming and passing by all these historic cities and such. But we'll
I,
also get off the ship and do some gaming as well.
I I don't know why I'm thinking about it, but I just keep thinking about like those big like riverboat casinos. I'm like, that would be a pretty cool place to hang out.
Yep. I mean, the good thing about those boats is, some of them are, at least on the Nile, they're kind of small. So just because of how you get through the locks and such. So there might only be several hundred people on those ships, as opposed to if you're cruising in the Caribbean, there could
Yeah.
be 3,000 to 5,000 people on that ship.
So since you're kind of a world traveler, Alex, what is your favorite place to go just in general?
I would say new places for sure. But I don't really have one specific destination. I would say it just kind of divided up into categories, maybe. If it's food, it's probably going to be Spain or something like that. If it's going to be environment, kind of geography, being outside, is probably going to be maybe a Peru or a Costa Rica or something like that. Beaches, Southeast Asia by far. So it just kind of depends. But for me, new places. Next year, I'll be going to Russia, Moldova, hopefully Kazakhstan, and a few other places. Not to say that these are going to be gaming locations, they could be, but just anywhere new would be fun. Maybe Colombia, I'm supposed to go there. So just a new destination.
Yeah, you should see this guy's passport. It's out of control.
Looks like a bingo card. Um, has starting this second company, RPG Travel, changed the way you think about travel now?
Absolutely. Definitely. The way the different venues and RPG Travel and my other company, I found all kinds of different new places that we can go and tie in, because my other company is more of it's an educational information style tour company circled around agriculture and culinary and nutrition and stuff like that. So we're doing that type of thing. And then with RPG Travel, it's kind of opened my eyes up to a lot of different venues that I would have never thought of, that I've probably driven by 5 times and had no idea that venue was there, or that what they offer is there. So now I'm incorporating that with my other company as well. But I mean, I think anytime you find something new and exciting and you're willing and you're able to, show people that in different countries, people really appreciate it. And they know when they finish the trip, they're like, wow, they really put their due diligence in here and figured out all the little nooks and crannies and fun places to go to make my trip, awesome.
I would love to have you back on after you've done a few of these in different locations and actually seen, when the rubber hits the road, what that looks like. And then if it's, further evolved, how you think about things when you actually get to see the people doing and enjoying, these hobbies at these locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to.
Yeah, watching these people play, like, in the cave has been just an amazing experience. Being able to, sort of feel the environment around you, and being able to play a game and watch. Of course, I'm not playing these games, unfortunately. I get to have to sit back and watch these people play, which is, a little. I'm a little jealous about it. But watching them see these things happening in the game that they can sort of take the inspiration from. One of the things that we do, even in the domestic, one shot, that kind of ties to what Alex was talking about a little earlier, is even when we do a single day cave experience, we start every one of those off with a tour of the cave, so they can kind of get a sense of what the environment feels like, what the different formations mean and how they work. And you give them a little bit of, a 30, 40-minute crash course in the particular, cave that you're going to be playing in. And then we sit down at the table and continue the game. One of the cool things that happened in our Carter Cave experience, it had been, so one of the things about caves, it's really cool actually, is it's the same temperature year round. So it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of winter or the middle of summer, it's going to be about 52 or 53 degrees in the cave at any time. But so we were in there, it had been really, really wet outside the cave for the days prior. So it rained quite a bit. And because of all the moisture in the air, as the sun came up outside and sort of started baking the hills around the cave, this cool little fog started to rise in the cave itself. And so here we are, we have tables sort of set about 15, 20 feet apart with games going on. And all of a sudden you kind of look over and you realize you can't even see the table across the way because this fog has sort of risen, this little microclimate that has sort of popped up in the cave. The first one we actually ran in Carter Cave was really the test run for this idea. It actually ruined the maps that we printed. We printed these really nice maps on really expensive paper. And about 15 minutes after we started playing, we realized that the rain coming from the roof of the cave completely destroyed these maps. So that was either another thing that we had to figure out is we actually have a very special paper that we use for our battle maps that will withstand the environment of a cave or a mine or whatever. But back to the question, watching these people experience this moment where these epic things are happening in the story, but you can reach out and touch the wall of the cave that you're in, has just been fantastic.
What kind of adventures were ran in the cave?
So the one that we did in the cave, I'm not going to tell you all of what was going on because it's very spoilery. I want people to experience this. We will continue to run these adventures, as people come back. But it was a mystery that had to be solved, where a particular set of people from the nearby town were going missing, and you had to uncover why.
So it sounds like a lot of fun. What does the one-shot itinerary look like? How inclusive is that? Like, is it does that include a meal? Does that include, like you said, mentioned the tour, the gaming?
So most of our one-shots for a single day, for example, will be, you kind of start anywhere between 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. Depending on where the venue is, we give people time to get there. But that gaming or that event will start sort of pre-9 o'clock, and we typically do a tour of some kind. One of the venues that we'll be doing in Red River Gorge, it's an abandoned limestone mine. And actually, to begin the tour, we take about a 25, 30-minute ride on the river to get into the mine. So the players actually get to experience this river ride on the way into the mine. And then, spoiler alert, the adventure actually incorporates a little bit of the river trip. But once you get to the gaming location, you sit down at the table. That happens usually a 3-4 hour gaming session, somewhere in that range. We break for lunch. Every venue is a little different. Some places we will travel a few miles to a place. In the one we're doing outside of Philadelphia, there's a really cool craft brewery that's about 2 miles from the cave. And so we'll be traveling for lunch to there, having a really nice meal at this craft brewery, then back to the cave to sort of do your afternoon, and you finish up, late afternoon, early evening to sort of wrap the adventure. And again, that's the day. So it includes the meal. It includes all of the gaming accessories. One of the things that we've really sort of tried to do on these, from the one shots all the way up to the international trips, is we kind of make it a show up in game kind of a moment. You register ahead of time. We use D&D Beyond for all of our things. They have partnered with us to provide this for all of our players. And so D&D Beyond is where we'll set up and use campaign. They create their character, but other than that, it's pretty much show up and play. We provide dice, we provide the minis, we provide the maps, we provide all of that cool and the swag you get to take home. You get the dice, and you get to take a cool mini home, and you get, you know, a backpack with all this cool stuff in it. And especially if we're playing in a cave, we have these cool little flashlights that you get to use with a pin on the end, and all these neat little things that sort of add up to make this sort of a turnkey experience. But that sort of contributes to that overall feel, and you get to take it all with you when you go. Kraken Dice, for example, they're one of our partners. They do all of our dice for all of the players. So you get some really cool stuff, and you get to play in really cool places and really cool adventures, if I do say so.
So all the different like gaming tables, are they all going through the same adventures, or each of the okay.
So yeah, I mean, one of the great things about being a DM is, you know, you certainly have license to do things a little differently. They're all starting from the same adventure, and then each DM sort of makes it his own or her own as we roll. And one of the coolest things about the catacombs thing that we did in Indianapolis, like I said, Alex said we had 15 tables on each night. So we did these little after action chats with the DMs to say, hey, you know, what happened? What out of the 30 tables that we ran, we didn't have a single story that was the same. And quite honestly, that's one of the things about this game that I love, is that you can take the same bones and the same meat of an adventure, you give it to a different party, and it's an entirely different experience. And we see that all the time. So you start from the same spot, and everybody finishes in a wildly different experience.
And where are you drawing your DMs from?
Kind of all over the place. I, again, have been doing this for a long time. And so our first core group of DMs were the guys that I play with on a normal basis. And then from there, it sort of branched out into, oh, well, this guy knows this person, and this one knows this one. And we sort of grew that organically to begin with. And then again, with the Indianapolis thing, it sort of ballooned much bigger than we expected right away. We weren't even sure how many people would show up for that. And it sold out on the Gen Con website in like 24 hours. So that's kind of why we added that second day. And that lasted about a week before it was sold out. And so we kind of put out the call to all the people that we had worked with and the people that I knew from the industry, and said, you know, hey, do you have people that are either coming into Gen Con, or people that, you know, within an hour or so of Indy, or you know, whatever, let me talk to them and see. And that's kind of how we began to build that out. Once that happened, our core group is so good now that that's actually, I was introduced to Eric by one of the DMs that we met early on. And he was actually so busy at Gen Con, he couldn't DM for us. So, but he reached out and said, hey, you know, for Ireland, you need to talk to Eric. He's a perfect fit for this. And lo and behold, he was correct. And so most of our DMs now are connected in some way to someone that we are connected to.
Nice. 7 degrees of separation?
100%. And so, you know, I get to kind of fanboy out a little bit, you know, being a nerd for so long. A lot of these people I've played some of their adventures, or I've read some of their stuff, or you know, Dave, I have followed Nerdarchy for a while. And so as a nerd coming into this and doing this now professionally, I get to kind of fanboy out and meet some of these people that, you know, I have just been a fan of up until such time.
So,
but yeah.
I guess that's what I was really drawing at. Like, so are these industry people that are running the games for you mostly then?
So ideally, as we continue to grow, we will have more and more recognized names that want to be a part of things. So, you know, all of the people that we use are professional DMs of some caliber. That may mean that they are professional DM for us, would be their first gig, but everybody has been vetted. Everybody has gone through a process that, you know, we make sure we just don't, you know, grab somebody off the street and stick them in front of the table and say, go. They're all sort of that vetted process to make sure that they understand not only how to run an adventure, but how to manage a table, how to make sure that the experience of the players matches what we expect out of a premium event. And again, I don't want to name drop the other companies that we have pulled from, but a lot of these people have GM'd for other gaming companies in and around, and we just sort of become an extension of their professional experience.
Well, when people sign up for the events, are they signing up for the events, or do they get to pick from GMs? What is the process like?
So in the sign up mode, we actually offer the ability for people to bring their own GM if they wanted to. That's something we haven't really talked about. Most of the time when we're talking to people, it turns out the GM of their little gaming group, he wants to be a player for a particular moment.
Yeah.
And so that GM will come in as a player and will provide the GM. But we don't give people right now the ability to pick their GM, but that has been requested. We have got a bunch of people from the Indianapolis event that have actually asked to play with the same GM again next year. And so we have a little bit of logistics work to do on our end to make sure that we can accommodate that.
Yeah.
But for when we have someone like Eric, which is a known entity in the space and has the history that he has, that will be something that there will be a premium associated with playing with someone like that, and he'll be sort of a VIP table, if you will. So, but each of our GMs, they are all covered not only from a skill perspective, but they are part of the development of the adventure, and so we make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page and operating from the same beginning spot.
Nice. Well, we are just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
I mean, I really appreciate you letting us come on and chat. This is, it is kind of a new thing, sort of existing pieces and parts kind of all stuck together into a new piece. But what we've done so far has been spectacular. People have had a great time. We're having a ball doing it. And it's only up from here. We have some really cool stuff in the works right now that we're not quite allowed to talk about. I'd hope maybe in a couple, 3 weeks, Dave, you and I can sit down and chat again, and we can talk about some of these cool things that we're not quite allowed to mention yet. But we've got some really cool stuff coming up, and we're excited to get people playing.
Cool. That sounds awesome. I want to thank you guys for all coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll absolutely have you back to talk about those things that we can't talk about right now. And until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Thank you so much for having us.